We have something called a midnight break at where I work, and I went there yesterday, and there were two groups of people with, different discussions going on, and I decided to, just to wait for a teammate while he was coming by with his snacks. And I couldn't help overhearing on two different tables the topics of conversation. On one side were three men from Tamil Nadu, and with them was another guy who's originally Tamilian, but he is based in the north since a couple of generations, and thus is not very familiar with the language. But he understands it and shares a lot of the cultural and political sentiments that seem to, belong to the place. And their topic of discussion was the tax divide, the Great Indian tax divide that has been spoken about. That apparently the northern Indian population is much greater and takes up a lot of the taxes that are generated in the southern part of the country. However, the southern part of the country has a lot of people that are employed in the south or are registered in the south. They use a lot of, means of production, including labor and other resources that come from all over the country. And any, tax generated elsewhere is essentially for the entire country, and anything that is for the state is provided to the state exchequer. So if the state was getting a good amount of GST, it would go to the state. 100% of it goes to the state. But there is this new narrative that makes the North versus the South divide very tangible. And on the other side, a different table, the conversation was rather typical of a different side of the political spectrum. And they were talking about how the farmers would essentially be, taken care of soon enough. What struck me essentially is that the conversation had no value. People were repeating things that they've heard about. And it was a lot of show and political one-upmanship ki हाँ भाई देख लेंगे उनको, and everybody would be like, yeah, absolutely, that's so correct. Same thing on the other side, where it's like, of course we get nothing, we pay for our development. So my understand, and these are grown people, right? These are not youngsters that are barely coming into their own and hardly 20 to 23 years old. These are people who've got enough experience in the field of, in the corporate world, and thus have access to resources, to news, to media, to a lot of different politics. So my question to you then is, are you comfortable talking about political topics in society? And if so, do you have any specific subject knowledge? For example, would you know what the farm law bills actually say? Do you agree that the farmers should be rounded up and should be jailed, etc.? And if so, then why? And do you think any of their concerns are valid? Do you know about what MSP guarantees mean, what their origin is, what their eventual impact on the economy, on the Indian economy, on the world economy will be? What withdrawal from the World Trade Organization would then mean? Who are the people protesting? What are their eventual goals? What are some of the things that you've come across, in these conversations? And when it comes to the Great North versus South divide, there's a lot of fault lines in any country that can be exploited. And as a modern nation state that's the world we live in, we can't go back to the past where we can say, the Maharajas had a lot of expertise in Excuse me, this is why I have tea on hand. Mm, But the Maharaja of Bikaner, the Maharaja of Mysuru, these people were very adept at dealing with adverse situations that affected their own Rajyas, and took care of the people, whether it was in the famine state, in any other conditions. We don't have that world anymore. We don't have a world of aristocracies and dynasts that are bound to protect a particular people. We have politicians who are supposed to represent us and our desires for, growth within the particular constituencies. So, do you then think that the various fault lines should be exploited? And thus, we do not then function as a nation, we function as certain, little provinces that the colonial Raj divided us into. And we retain no identity that has to do with the nation, but then we will also be. Look, this is a hypothesis because India is a union of states. We are not a federation. We are completely different from a US sort of model of democracy because they are a federal government. So, what do you think then should be the case when it comes to such things that, okay, here's a state that's earning more, here's a state that's providing more labor. So does the state providing more labor deserve some of the taxes from this state where it's producing more? Do the taxes from Kerala, can they be used in Bengaluru, for example? So how do you decide on these issues? Do you think that there is some critical analysis that would help in these cases? What is your basis for understanding these topics? Do you want deeper knowledge, and do you want more critically analyzed subjects? And if so, what are some of the subjects that you're thinking of, analyzing and researching? Do drop some comments, so I will get back to all of you if you've gotten this far and you've heard me out. But I do think that these conversations are very interesting, but personally, I would not want to be part of these conversations because they add nothing. The topic is not discussed. For example, in the case of the farmers, the topic should be the policy in question. The farm bills, the impact of those on the economy, the impact of those on the Indian economy, and the impact of those on the global economy, the state of agriculture in the country, and the possible, again, impacts and consequences of either the withdrawal of the farm bills or the agitations themselves. So those are things that should probably be discussed, not a hubris-filled one-upmanship thing that हाँ ऐसा ही होना चाहिए, वैसा तो नहीं होना चाहिए, अरे वो तो सही लड़ रहे हैं, मतलब not an echo chamber constantly echoing, right? And then on the other side, the reason that I would not participate is because there's no policy discussion. There's no discussion of how taxes are actually earned, what allows for these taxes to be generated, who are the people paying these taxes. So there's a lot of things that one can discuss about with any topic, but how do you typically deal with these situations? Now, if you this is a very impromptu recording. I just wanted to put something out there because it's been a while and I haven't really spoken to the camera and I have become quite conscious about it. So if you've gotten this far, thank you so much. I would really appreciate if you think of just liking, so my face shows up sometimes in your feed, because otherwise the YouTube algorithm does not do that. It does not promote my channel. So if you would be very kind and just click the like button, consider subscribing, I would be very grateful. And do leave your comments below because I'm serious. I would get back to any of you that actually answers any of the questions I've asked here. And I'd love to hear your views on this. Thank you so much for listening.